Okay.
And we're live.
We're live.
And
perfect.
Without people, of course, have to now trickle the way in.
I wonder if folks are on the other event.
Yeah. So.
Okay. Someone did comment.
We're live now. Okay. So it is showing that it's live. The other thing is, can you, on your machine, could you go to the original page just to make sure that people are not confused there?
Yeah. Where is it?
5 viewers, 4 viewers.
Hi, everyone. All right. I think folks are trickling in. Apologies for the slight delay, but everything should be good now. So how about we get started? So thank you all for joining, and we can do a brief round of introductions real quick. So I'm Ani Mohan. I'm a product manager on the Chrome team where I work on the physical web.
I'm Scott Jensen. I'm product lead on the physical web.
I'm Michael Mockney. I'm an engineer on the physical web.
Yeah, as we said, thank you for joining. So the reason we wanted to grab this time and get a chance to speak with you all is because of the recent launch of the Nearby product, which we linked to in the event page here, and you all might have heard of it. But to recap, it's a new feature coming through Google Play Services that was launched last Thursday that allows users of Android devices on KitKat and above to discover useful Nearby content, both apps and websites. And one of the features that Nearby supports is showing physical web results. And so our team is really excited about this launch and really excited that physical web is now coming to even more users on Android. But we figured that folks might have some questions about sort of how physical web works with Nearby and what this means both for users and developers. So I was thinking that maybe what we can do is we can kick things off just by giving a brief description of kind of what Nearby is and how physical web will work inside of Nearby. But then we'll open the floor to you all to ask any questions that you might have about what the integration will look like.
And just so you know, we have turned on the Q&A feature. So if you go ahead and open up the Q&A panel on the left-hand side, you should be able to post any questions there.
Yeah, there's a group chat that you should feel free to type in. And I think for Q&A, we have to prompt for a question. So
perfect. I think the Q&A thing is enabled.
Yeah, I'm unable to submit a question until you ask for questions from the audience. So there's probably a button for you. But we can also just use group chat. There are few enough people viewing.
Yeah, I think group chat will work too.
I went ahead and I posted something to group chat. Did you see that?
Yeah.
So guys, there we go. So let's just go ahead and keep this low tech. And so anybody who does want to add anything, please just jump into the group chat.
Sounds good. So yeah, we'll keep our eyes tuned to the group chat, but we can tell you a little bit of sort of what Nearby is and sort of what it means for the physical web right now. So as I mentioned, it's a new service that's being distributed through Google Play Services, and it started being rolled out to users last Thursday. Still only a small portion of users who've received it so far, since we're still experimenting with it and making sure that everything works well, but it's going to be rolled out to all users over the upcoming weeks. And as I mentioned, it sources Nearby content from BLE Beacon broadcasts through physical web, which is done through the Eddystone URL frame type, as you might know, but also through other sources such as the Google Beacon registry. So one of the reasons why our team is really excited about this is because even more users are going to be able to use physical web now. By simply having an Android device and having location turned on, they'll be receiving something very similar to what Chrome on Android currently sends users who've opted into the physical web, which is a low priority notification. It's a notification that doesn't buzz the user's phone and that appears when the user proactively swipes down in the notification tray, available for them to tap on it and see a list of all Nearby results. And so hopefully this user experience doesn't sound sort of new to you or unfamiliar to you. It's exactly what we've implemented on Chrome on Android today. You could think of it as this recent product launch as evolving the Chrome on Android functionality into the Android platform through Nearby.
Could we just get anybody here that's watching just to give us a little chat in the group chat window? Just want to make sure that we've got somebody out there. We see that there's between 12 and 15 viewers out there, but haven't seen much in the group chat window. Just comment, someone just let us know that you're there.
Sean,
And meanwhile, I'm just going to go to another machine and check any activity on the event page.
yeah, it looks like someone on the event page is complaining there is no video or audio. I posted a question. We'll see if anybody replies there.
You can hear us, right, Michael? You heard everything fully?
I can, although I've joined differently. Let me try actually playing. One moment.
I'm going to try that too. Let's see. Does this work? Can't. Does this work? Oh, there's a little bit of a delay. Yeah.
Okay, so it looks like we are getting Q&A, but not on the, there it is. Do you see all the questions? People have figured out how to ask.
It looks like there's about a 10-second delay.
There's a little bit of a delay. That's one of the things. There we go. Perfect. Okay. Yes. Folks are asking where the group chat is. So it's actually the very top icon that appears on the left-hand navigation tray. It's a blue icon with 3 lines.
It appears not available for viewers of the live stream. It's only available to participants. Sorry about the confusion there.
Oh, is that right? Okay.
Okay. Well, it looks like people are actually figuring out the Q&A, and we're saying things like, what does this mean for iOS? Does this work here? And so we are definitely getting people kind of coming in. So it sounds to me like at this point, we should go ahead and stick with the questions.
Right. It looks, yeah. So just to clarify, looks like group chat does not actually work for viewers. So please use the Q&A functionality, and we're able to see a list of all the questions that folks have asked. So maybe what we can do is just go in order.
Yeah,
so
R&D, basically just, oh, they got rid of this. No.
No, it's there.
There it is.
Yeah, it looks like the first question we have is from RD, asking about what this means for iOS. So good question. So on iOS, our plans are no different from what's there today. So for folks who might not know, Chrome on iOS today supports the physical web, and it's currently implemented through a Today View widget, which is something you can add from the Today View on iOS if you have Chrome installed. We on the team are working on ways to bring physical web results potentially to other parts of Chrome on iOS. Still don't have anything to share yet there for you, but something that we're actively working on the team. But we will continue using sort of Chrome on iOS to surface physical web results.
Okay.
Hopefully that answered your question.
Yeah, and more specifically to Nearby, that's an Android-only feature.
Exactly. For KitKat and above devices. And to use it, you need to have the master location switch turned on as well as Bluetooth.
And even though this was mentioned, I think, in the original FAQ we sent out, I want to make sure people understood that the physical web is still working exactly the same. You still have the same Eddystone beacons, and the way they were discovered in Chrome is now the same way they're discovered in Nearby. They still show up. They're still the same URLs. They still work the same way, and so forth. So there were some people asking that question previously, and it's really exactly the same physical web.
Yeah, and that's a good point, because what that really means is that from a developer perspective as well, nothing else changes. You continue to buy the same beacons, configure the same URLs that you did before, and so long as they're HTTPS and not malicious URLs, they will appear on the user's device. Okay.
We don't seem to have any additional questions at this point.
No additional questions, right?
I have a question for you guys.
Yeah.
What do we think this will mean for usage?
So yeah, we're excited about it, and we think this will significantly increase usage for a couple reasons. So one, even more users are going to be able to use physical web now on Android. It's all Android users, not just Chrome users on Android. So that's one thing. The other is that the actual user experience of Nearby is slightly different from Chrome on Android in that there's not an explicit opt-in prompt that users have to go through in the same way that they did on Chrome on Android. And the reason for that is because we're able to show contextual sort of results when the user first sees a physical web notification, rather than a generic prompt. And so we think this will help users better understand why they're receiving this notification and what useful content there is nearby before they actually tap on it.
Okay, we're getting some more questions in, which is great. So let me select this one right here, which is to say currently Chrome shows a notification that physical web pages are nearby, and then the user has to click to see the actual pages. Does the nearby feature mean that the user now sees a separate notification for each page? It should be quite similar, which is to say you see a single URL or maybe one or two, it'll show up. If you have a lot of them, it'll still give you a grouping, and then you'll still tap on the same thing and then go to the full list. So it's still very much the exact same flow.
Yep. So Nearby sends the notification, not individual pages.
Okay. I'll close that one down. The next one is how fast is a new domain available as a physical web object? I'll click that right here. I'm not quite sure I understand. We're going to answer it a bit broadly. The point, though, is that you should just be able to stick up a URL inside a physical web beacon or URL beacon, and then it should just be found. So there's no real reason for you to have to wait for any period of time. The whole reason we did this was so that you could just use regular web pages.
Yeah, technically speaking,
Michael?
if your URL is publicly accessible, physical web results should show up immediately. They'll be a little bit slower the first time, but only a couple of seconds slower, not minutes or hours. As long as the URL is publicly accessible, though.
Yeah, and HTTPS, by the way. We've said that many times, but we have to keep repeating that. Okay. Will Yuri Beacon work or only Eddystone URL? Yuri Beacon was our original version we did a long time ago, and once we kind of like morphed into the broader Eddystone beacon, so we are only working with Eddystone beacons at this point, Eddystone URLs. We're no longer supporting Yuri Beacon. It's the identical format. It really is just simply the service ID that's different, and we decided just to kind of rally around that same single service ID. But other than that, it's pretty much the same.
And manufacturers who used to produce URI beacons are now producing Eddystone beacons. And if you go to g.co/beacons, you can see a full list of all possible manufacturers.
Okay. I'll pick this next one. Any advice for dev?
Why don't we read these out loud too, just so people know.
Any advice for dev testing? It seems like I've seen the physical web ups once or twice, but can't control getting one to pop up by powering off the device or BLE something. I think you're referring to just when the notifications show up. I think that moving this to the Android notification, at least on Android, is going to make this a lot more consistent. In general, the scan happens when the device is powered on because it doesn't want to chew up battery by running constantly in the background. So every time you wake your device, you should have a fresh list of things in the notification. And if not, then that's a bug and we will fix it.
Yep.
Yeah.
And then one quick thing you said. So I think you accidentally said powered on. It's just whenever the screen is turned on.
Exactly. We're waking up the screen.
Yep.
You do not have to reboot the phone.
Yeah, don't worry. I'll need to restart the phone.
And also for developer testing, if you have the list of results open, it's permanently like polling and actively scanning, and you'll get more consistent results than if you're waiting for a notification. The notification is meant to be a best effort attempt to find all beacons. So like users who are walking around the world can discover them. But if you're a developer who's testing, just bring up the physical web activity in Chrome or open up the Nearby list, and then you'll see results more consistently.
Excellent. Okay. You want to read off this next one, honey?
Sure. So the next one is from Andre. Any best practice recommendations for when to use Android's native Nearby recommendations versus physical web for different use cases based on outdoor, indoor, size of area covered, announcement lifespan, etc. So I want to make sure I understand this question, and I'll answer it in a few different ways. So one way to interpret this is when to use sort of Nearby versus other physical web sort of UIs, maybe the Chrome UI. And the answer there is don't think of it as something That's its separate UI. Think of it as the Chrome on Android experience that's evolved into Nearby. And so from a developer standpoint, you don't need to worry about which product the user interacts with to see the list of results. It'll still appear the same way. So you don't have to do anything different. But perhaps another angle on this question is you're wondering that because Nearby sources content from multiple different sources, physical web, as well as the Google Beacon registry, how do you as a developer think about which one to use? We think they're both great options for developers. They just cater to sort of different use cases. So the physical web, as Scott mentioned earlier, we think is a great way for folks to get started in a very lightweight way without having to do any setup work, installation work, or get permission. You simply need to have a publicly addressable HTTPS URL, and that's it. If you have a beacon and you have this URL, with a little bit of configuration work, your URL can now be visible on any Android device. So that's great because it's a lightweight, friction-free way for developers to get started. But it's also helpful to actually register your beacons with Google and surface content in Nearby if you're trying to do something slightly different. And the example and the primary use case that Nearby started with is being able to surface your app in a contextual location. And so some of our early launch partners, and I'm trying to think of one that I can speak to, CVS is one that comes to mind. If you're CVS and you walk into a CVS store, CVS has deployed beacons that allow you as a user to be able to discover the app easily and install it. So that's something that we're more comfortable doing in a whitelisted model where these apps have been registered with the Google Beacon registry beforehand. Again, that's slightly different from the physical web. We're very focused on our team in working with developers such as you folks to enable these really friction-free, lightweight URL-based experiences.
Okay, the next is Jeffrey Duggan. He said, with a low priority notification occur every time the smartphone goes out of range and returns in range of the same beacon, or is there a hold-off time? And I think we need to talk about what happens actually at the scanning level versus actually at the user level. And so there is an on-found and on-lost event, and that happens down in the Nearby API level. But I think the low priority notification itself is fairly stable. It will only show up when you kind of wake up your phone, and then and often when you find more than one, it says the same thing, and then it'll just be there when you click on it, and then it'll refresh the full results in the actual list view itself. So the short answer is you should not be getting a notification constantly as you go in and out. Michael, is there anything you want to add to that?
I think this strategy is constantly evolving, and Nearby has slightly different details than Chrome does. And as Scott says, it's all based on the underlying scans. So as an example, if you open your phone in a room, turn on the screen, see a notification, turn off your phone, you could walk around all day as long as the next time you come back to that same space and turn it on, your phone has kind of no idea that it moved around from our perspective. So it's a little bit nuanced. I will say that Chrome for Android right now is a little bit aggressive. It will constantly fire a notification with not much back off period. We think we can get away with that since it's a minimum priority actually notification that's non-disruptive. So we like to have the notification there whenever you're near beacons. The Nearby notifications feature does have more of a back off period because they're a little bit more aggressive with the way they show these results. But it's a constantly evolving decision that the engineers make based on the particular Google integration.
Okay, cool.
So if you have recommendations actually as to whether you prefer it to go one way or the other, please do make them either on CRBug or file them with us or just raise it on our lists.
All right, so the next one is, when do you intend to switch to HTTPS on iOS? The answer is very soon. Stay tuned for the next few releases of Chrome, and you should see that upcoming.
The answer is we have made the switch. We're just waiting for iOS Chrome to ship into the to the Apple App Store. So right. The change has been made.
Yeah, and it just can't happen fast enough.
Okay. The next one, how long is it going to take for the latest Play services to reach everyone? So the latest version of Play services should actually be there. But it's a question of when Nearby itself will be rolled out to everyone on this latest version of Play services. don't have specific timelines for you, but the team is trying to move as soon as possible. And over the next few weeks, barring any unforeseen sort of issues that arise with the limited rollout of Nearby so far, we should see it reach a lot more folks.
Okay.
Doesn't look like a question.
How does the Fi.net's dashboard management system this is comparing Fi.net's dashboard management system to the Google's native solution. And again, by Google's native solution, I think you're referring to the Nearby integration. And again, we really like Fi.net, and it's a good example of how we're kind of basing this on the way the web approaches things. So we're just discovering the URLs that are around you, and that's all we're really doing. Fi.net gives you a better, more nuanced URL dashboard with a URL redirector that should do more fancy things. And we think that's great because multiple URLs could be done, multiple companies can do this, and this is all just based on a web-based URL. So we just find the URL, they make the URL do something more interesting. I like to break it up that way.
Yeah, I would describe it as we're lower, we're on a lower level of the stack than where Fi.net sits. We're just discovering Nearby URLs and displaying them. Okay, the next one.
Yeah.
Will the Nearby API work with iBeacon format?
That's probably a question for the
It's probably a question for the Nearby team. Yeah, we unfortunately cannot speak to their roadmap.
Sorry about that.
So our team is the physical web team, and we work with Nearby very closely in surfacing sort of physical web results, but we don't know too much about what the plans are for other parts of the Nearby platform.
So is there an order in the way the URLs are listed? Distance, broadcast speed, alphabetic order, etc. Again, I want to mirror much of what Michael just said. This is an ongoing, evolving thing as we're learning. What you'll notice is that the iOS app makes an attempt to do an ordering based on path loss, which is a perceived distance. It's not perfect, but the things that are stronger tend to be the top of the list. The Android app does not do that because we were not able to get that information on our first release, but that is coming. So the short answer is we are working towards having both iOS and Android basically rank based on distance. But we will probably be using other signals over time, and this will be kind of a continually evolving thing as we learn more.
Yeah, do you mind if we discuss a little bit about page quality ranking, Scott?
Of course.
Yeah, go for it.
So another thing that we're not doing much of right now, but we would like to start doing, is to start sort of raising the priority on pages that we think are very high quality, so known, trustworthy pages. And we'll use the same metrics that sort of Google search uses. So these are things that you're already aware of and used to. Things like responsiveness, mobile friendliness, popularity, that sort of thing. As well as sort of maybe a little bit down-ranking things that we're not so confident about. So we'll always show everything in the list, but just to start getting you to think about this, we might be able to do even better for you through notifications if we trust your content and if it's a very popular result. So just something coming down the road.
Okay. We're looking to. Okay, this is more. Oh, this is Morty. Hi, Morty. We were looking at adding an option for enhanced actions in the notification, meaning that we can add things beyond just dismiss or click on them. This has been a topic that's been brought up quite a bit. We actually had some early explorations where you could try to do an action within the notification itself. It raised a lot of security concerns, and so what we're doing is we're just being cautious at this point. So we're trying not to have the list view turn into its own UX surface. We just want to basically be able to find the URL, the actual page, and then take you there. And so for fairly lightweight pages, these should load up quite quickly. Especially with progressive web apps coming, they would be loading nearly instantly. We're going to stick with that for now because that is safe and clear, and we can experiment with different surfaces. Over time, obviously, this is an interesting idea, but we're not going to be doing anything in the near term on this. It just feels like we're just having too many moving parts, and we don't want to get the security wrong on this at all.
Cool. Another one. In the case of Nearby notifications, the notification can have custom text, which gives a better contextual information. Also, the permission required is only Bluetooth and location. So why should we use physical web and not Nearby notifications? So this is an opportunity for us to clarify, hopefully, and sort of just make it clear sort of how physical web and nearby work together. So physical web is a part of nearby. Physical web is one of many types of results that nearby notification surfaces. So it's not a question of using one or the other. It's a question of a physical web being supported sort of in nearby. And so perhaps another way of formulating this, and maybe this is what you were asking, is why should we use Chrome on Android's integration versus nearby notifications? And our policy moving forward is actually if users have nearby enabled on their device, we will turn off Chrome on Android's firing of physical web notifications. So users don't receive redundant notifications, but to the end user, the end experience should not look different. It's still a low priority notification that will appear if they have Bluetooth and location turned on, that if they tap on, they'll see a list of all nearby URLs. And to update sort of the metadata as a deployer that allows you to change what the physical web text looks like when a user sees your results, we simply use the title and description tags that you can mark up on your page. So that's how you can add contextual information.
Yeah, I think it bears repeating, and this is relevant to a previous question that we answered perhaps before we were joined. Physical web will now reach more users on Android thanks to nearby notifications.
Yeah, agreed.
Location and Bluetooth are now only required at the system level for physical web scanning. So physical web is about the network of physical beacons, and the advertising and broadcasting and scanning has now just tremendously improved thanks to nearby notifications.
Exactly, yeah, and our team started by integrating physical web with Chrome on Android, but now we've evolved it to Google Play services in Android.
Okay. There's a question that's actually near and dear to my heart from Anthony about beacons have telemetry information like temperature, and this can be appended to the URLs somehow. I think he's referring to the demo that I tweeted out myself a couple days ago from Ruivitag, RUUIVITAG. And basically, they're a sensor beacon, and they made their own version of Eddystone packets. They used, I think, the Arduino code, and they're just broadcasting out a regular URL, but they actually take their sensor values, the telemetry values, and just encode it into a 6 or 7, 8 byte hex value. And then when that web page picks that up as a parameter and then just displays that information. So it's almost magical, but it's actually really, really simple. And it shows how we like to be able to be built on top of the web. So it's a very simple trick. And if you go to Ruvi, I think it's ruivitag.com, or just search for Ruivitag, you'll be able to see them, and all of their code is open sourced. So you can learn more about it from them.
Looks like there were a few at the top.
That was our group chats.
One will Chrome iOS support all nearby notifications? No, the current plan is for Chrome on iOS only to support physical web results. So anything that you can sort of configure and broadcast over Eddystone URL is currently appearing and will continue to appear on Chrome on iOS.
I like this one too here. Do you intend to expand physical web nearby notifications to support complex forms like JSON, LSD, pictures, actions, locations? This is quite similar to the previous question, which is how much do we want to actually move into the notification itself, and how much actually just is going to go to the web page. So as we have been experimenting with this more and more, we're finding out that actually web Bluetooth is going to allow you to do really incredible things on your web page, looking for local things in the environment. So to a certain extent, we want to make the physical web notifications be as lightweight as possible to get you into your web page to do whatever fancy things that you want to do. So you could argue that both are possible. You could push more into the notification. You could push more into the web page. Given where things are happening with web Bluetooth, we're thinking that's the better place to start, because it allows, for example, other clients to be invented, other platforms to be invented. So the way iOS does it, the way Android does it, the way Opera does it, they all don't have to rev to this new standard. They just basically show the page and then just take you to the web page. So we really want to make sure that we encourage as many scanners as possible and as many PWSs as possible. And by keeping it to the web page, we allow that ecosystem to grow a little bit more easily.
Yeah, and if you don't mind me following.
Please.
Another feature that's similar to this one that is often asked is, How can we do automatic triggers when you're within proximity of a beacon? Or how do we re-engage with users after they've previously engaged with a beacon, and that sort of thing.
Okay.
And if you want to take that?
No, please go ahead.
We think that web push notifications and scanning and that sort of stuff at the website level is the right answer, because we can never push enough into the list view to fully grasp all the requirements that your particular website has for its particular app needs. What are the complicated triggers that you need for your users? So exactly as Scott said, we want to get you into your website as quick as possible and give you as much superpowers within that website as possible.
There's a follow-up question to the telemetry question. Looks like I didn't quite get it right. I think they're referring, the question seemed to be about telemetry, referring to the telemetry packet that Eddystone has. And in that case, there is no connection between the telemetry packet of Eddystone and the physical web URL. We're not working those. We are just the physical web URL, with the Eddystone URL. We take you to the web page. If you want to use telemetry, then you need to use the Google services to then gather those things up and tie them back to a particular service.
Yeah, and a key thing I'd point out is the two are not mutually exclusive. A single beacon can broadcast
of course. Yes.
all these frame types in parallel.
Yeah. So this is a little bit nuanced. There are two ways I know of that you can actually get telemetry information working with Eddystone beacons right now. One of which is to register a UID beacon and also have a URL, as you said. And then you'll get telemetry information for the same beacon that's broadcasting the URL. And then another way is when you register with Google, you do also have a way to associate a URL value with the registry. But this isn't something we couldn't fix, perhaps. So perhaps this is a feature request on your behalf, and maybe we will reach out and see if we can't do better there.
Follow-up question, does Nearby still make use of the same PWS as Chrome? Michael, do you want to take that?
Yes, it does.
Same thing. If it appeared on Chrome on Android and soon Chrome on iOS, then it will appear in Nearby.
That's an easy one. I like that one.
Next one. Do you see other browsers, for example, Opera, Firefox, and Edge, supporting the physical web? So we've started having discussions with other browsers and have been quite pleased with the initial response. So Opera has already publicly released a version of Opera, an Opera Labs build that provides physical web support. I believe it was released last October or so for Android. Firefox and Edge, we've only had early discussions so far. They haven't publicly committed to anything, and we can't speak to their roadmaps, but hopeful that they'll participate too.
I love this one. What's next for WebBLE? For instance, it'd be great to be able to trigger web actions based on what BLE devices are nearby without having to connect to them, as the current case. Well, I think there's going to be a range of features. The key, I think maybe some of you have seen our demos using the Candy Machine or the Turtle or the little robot that we drive around on the floor. Those are all using kind of the initial version of Web Bluetooth, which means that you see the URL, you go to the web page, you connect to one device, and you drive that around. That is the current version of Web Bluetooth, and it's really meant to be interactive with the device that's in front of you. Web Bluetooth will continue to evolve and get more superpowers as it goes, but we're kind of starting with that basic use case now. So anything you want to add to that?
Yeah, I think that's fair.
Yeah, but by the way, I still think Web Bluetooth is awesome, and I think it's going to really unlock a whole bunch of really great use cases. So if you are interested, there is a whole W3C group chat about this, and you can see where we're going. There's a proposal, for example, for a scanning API that's still under discussion. Yeah. So there's a lot of things happening in Web Bluetooth.
Encourage you to follow along on the Web Bluetooth GitHub, where we chat about a lot of these things.
There's another really exciting Web Bluetooth proposal that now's a good time to chime in if you have feedback. And I forgot the specific name or nuanced portion of it, but it refers to a JavaScript variable called referring device. And to shortcut the conversation, if you follow a beacon URL that takes you to a website, that website will have a clue about what Bluetooth device was advertising the URL. So specifically, if you have a toy that advertises a URL, you'll be able to collect directly to that toy without this intermediate prompt that says, choose the toy nearby.
Okay, you want to do the last one here?
Cool. Yeah. Looks like we have.
And by the way, we're kind of running up on our time, so I think we're going to wrap this up with a few more questions, then be done.
Cool. So there's a follow-up question to a previous answer asking about how nearby works, which is, does that mean by simply turning on Bluetooth and location, users will get a physical web notification even if Chrome hasn't been launched anytime? That's right. So to clarify again how nearby works with Chrome on Android, if a user has nearby on their device, then Chrome on Android will not fire physical web notifications. So simply by having Bluetooth and location on, they'll be able to receive these notifications.
Okay.
As long as the phone is running, it's not
Right, phone's got to be on. That's a key thing.
Yeah. Okay.
Cool. So I think that about wraps up this Q&A session. So thanks to the folks who joined and stuck through our technical difficulties earlier. And hopefully this gave you a little bit more clarification on nearby and specifically how physical web works with nearby. I encourage you to sort of continue joining along in these discussions on our public mailing list, our GitHub, our Twitter. We're responsive on all these channels and happy to sort of keep the discussion evolving there. But yeah, thanks again.
Yep. And if you have any further issues, just feel free to write a couple of things into the Google Plus page, and we'll try to follow up afterwards with a couple of little things. But in case we didn't get to all your questions. But thanks very much for coming, and hopefully, if this makes sense, we'll do it again. Thanks. Bye-bye.
Bye.